sudah start dah. Selamat pagi everyone. Hello, can you hear me? Can you see me? Okay. Bahasa saya tak begitu baik ya, sebab saya orang Malaysia. So when you hear my bahasa, macam tak betul So don't worry, so I'll use bahasa English, okay? Don't worry. My colleague Susanto, bahasa Indonesia. Me, bahasa Malaysia, bahasa English, okay. We also got Korean. So when you're ready, we're ready, okay? Without further ado, let's go. My name is Steve, and I'm a developer relations lead in New Relic. If you want to look at my slide, take your phone, tangga gambar, take your phone, and you can follow along with me. Today, I'm going to share with you top 10 metrics that you want to observe in the world of Kubernetes. This slide, only this weekend. Next Monday, no more, okay? Take a slide. Wait a more. Time ticking. I got time limit, Okay, one more thing. Nama saya, my email, SNG. Steve, no good. Steve, no good. If you want to connect with me, want to ask me a question, yang ni my slide, okay? My email. Okay, without further ado, let's go. Kubernetes, it's a fantastic product. It's a fantastic technology. It's an awesome technology. But my SRE engineers, my DevOps engineers, my Ops engineers, when something goes wrong in Kubernetes, you pray very hard. Am I right? You pray very hard. You go to logs, you use whatever tools, you want to figure out where it goes wrong. The foundation of Kubernetes is actually containers. But the problem is if one container or the control plane start to go wrong, sometimes your Kubernetes is going to go very problematic. Today, for engineers, I'm going to make a confession for you. You have around 20, 30, 50, 100 dashboard and alerts when something goes wrong, correct? Today, I'm going to put my opinion. If I only have 10, only have 10, what I'm going to do, and this is my opinion. Let's go. Number one. The problem with Kubernetes is there's so many ways you can get data. You have C-Advisor, you have metric server, you have API server, you have node exporter, you have KSM. So many places to actually get data. If I can only do 10, what I need to do? So what I'm doing right here is I'm going to share with you, based on my experience working with engineers, customers, but also what's being discussed in the community, what are the top 10 metrics that you want to look for. Number one, the number one problem in Kubernetes is misconfiguration. For example, you type 1, O-N-E, but you type O-N-E-E, mampus, straight away, your Kubernetes die. Misconfiguration is the number one problem in Kubernetes right there. The good thing is the community is getting better. There's a lot of guides, there's a lot of practice that allows you to do better. For example, source control, deployment pipeline, and you can even use a tool, something like Launch Darkly. But a true engineer will crash production at least once. That's a true engineer. If you never crash production, not true. But if you crash, yes, true, try better. So number one is misconfiguration. And there's been debate in the community, maybe Argo CD, and the next one, Governo. Governo is a new tool that come out in CNCF, could be a way for us to actually tackle misconfiguration. How do you do it? Tools like GitLab. GitLab actually has very good deployment pipeline that actually tells you what's configured correctly. Is it going to the pipeline? Is it going in stage? But most importantly, GitLab also have out-of-box API for you to actually look at DORA metrics. So it's actually very good. So not only you can look for misconfiguration, but you also can measure the pipeline. Second one, Argo CD. Oh my God, every engineer in CNCF talk about Argo CD right now. Argo CD is getting better, and there's something that we also look into it, and also we're going to do a talk about Argo CD very soon, and actually improving the misconfiguration right there. So number one, you want to use something like status, metric number one, status. And actually this is where you actually find them on GitLab or Argo CD. Number two, I need more. Macam kucing ni You know when you deploy Kubernetes, you need a lot of server power. Not enough? Speak to Nutanix, speak to Red Hat, speak to Azure. More CPU, more memory. Kubernetes needs a lot of power. But the problem with Kubernetes is if you're not careful, you need to watch out for this thing called CPU limit and memory limit. When you reach CPU limit, throttling. When you use this memory limit, OMM, kill. And the debate of the century, again, every engineers that ever work with Kubernetes, you know, you want to set quota or no quota? Should you set or don't set? For me, half-half, and I'll tell you why. This is how we do capacity planning on Kubernetes in New Relic. We plan 30% capacity, and we use auto-scaling, okay? We use this thing called N plus 2, N plus 1, not N plus 1, N plus 2, okay? And we do trend analysis weekly, monthly, quarterly, and we use histogram metric to see which server and port very hot or very cold. Yeah, that's actually how we do it. How do we do it? Next slide. Here. The best way to actually get this metric is the metric server. That's the kubectl command that you run it, and that's where you get things like CPU and memory. This is important because that's where you get horizontal and vertical scaling that you do through the metric server. Now, one more thing. Should you quota or no quota? This is actually a really good article that tells you that you should spend some time to actually study, do you need to put CPU quota right there? As mentioned, my fellow engineers, capacity planning in Kubernetes is very, very hard. If you know how to do it, you deserve a pay rise. But I make this very easy for you. Here, this slide. You should go and visit this page and actually do calculation on your Kubernetes cluster. It's a very UI-driven, and it tells you which particular cloud and cluster you need to plan your Kubernetes cluster. This is very useful that you should use in every engineer. Okay? Now, number 3, network. Oh my God. Every engineers, you know, when network issue happen, you pray to God. Even I pray to God. I drink 20 cans of Red Bull when network something goes wrong. Network problem, it's a very common in Kubernetes. Starting from Kubernetes 1.2, core DNS, it's something that you recommend in the Kubernetes server. But engineers don't understand core DNS very well. So therefore, there's a lot of common problem, especially with Kubernetes ingest, and the community is getting better and better in improving network headaches. Next, so where do we find this information, yeah? Where do we find? Right here. If you go to Kubernetes DNS, especially on the core DNS, you see a lot of good information what you need to do. But again, this is top 10 metric. If I can only pick 2, what I pick? I pick error rate, which is through core DNS, and the second one is status. Up, down, up, down, up, down, the core DNS. And this is how you do the kubectl to actually get logs, everything through the core DNS right here. Core DNS network headache is a very, very common problem in the world of Kubernetes right there. So again, you actually have it right there. Next one. Right now, if you speak to the community, there are 3 types of solution that people use for Kubernetes, especially for network Kubernetes ingest. You have Nginx, you have Traffic, you have Kong. Which one is more popular? You decide. But I'll tell you, if I pick one metric, what do I pick? Error rate. Okay, error rate. Again, it's only top 10, not top 20, not top 100 or 200. Only top 10. So that's actually one of my pick, which actually on the error rate of the network phases right there. Next one. Your pod will get stuck. Guaranteed. Guaranteed. Any Kubernetes environment, if you have a very small, it's okay. But once you start to scale, sometimes your pod will get stuck. Your pod will get stuck maybe because CPU is not correct, memory is not correct, or queue is not correct. So if your pod gets stuck, you're going to see things like insufficient resource, insufficient image, misconfiguration. What do I do? Like this cat, kucing, I need your help. So you actually can set certain things, but what you want to do is a lot of Kubernetes engineer will go into the Kubernetes and run kubectl describe to actually understand what's going on. So this is actually how you do. But the good thing is Kubernetes is getting better and better, and you should spend time actually customizing your termination message. It is possible. Because I guarantee that usually engineer will say, not working, error, 404, no description, don't know what to do, correct? Now, the classic error message I've seen before, classic error message, dash. Apa tu? Don't know what the error message. But sorry, it happens. So again, my fellow engineers, work with your ops engineer, DevOps engineer, and developers to make sure your termination is done correctly. One more thing I also want to say. My fellow engineers, you love logs. Wow, no logs, no life, huh? Wow, you love logs. Wow, logs. Remember, logs used to be very cheap in the past, but because of containers, Kubernetes, application, everything logs, you want to leverage only push error logs into whatever you want. FluentD, FluentBit, New Relic, whatever, open source, whatever. This is where you should do the right thing because you will always get stuck, okay? So where do you get them? This is where you get the KSM, Kube Stat Metrics, and the area you want to go into is pod metric. So where do you find them? There are two metrics that I suggest that you look for. Kube pod status phase, which is pending, running, succeed, fail, or unknown, and kube pod status reason, evicted, node affinity, node loss, shutdown, unexpected, or error emission right there. And that's the kubectl that you use. kubectl describe pod. What do? You actually get it right there. The good thing is, today, I have no time to cover every single thing. That's why I give you that slide. All the links, introspection, troubleshoot, debug. This is something that you want to make sure as part of your top 10. Okay? Your pod, top 10. Next, control plane. Your control plane will go down. I'm sorry to tell you. But the problem with control plane is so complex. There's so many components. Today you go to Tech Talk, you go to any workshop, everybody will talk about the control plane. If I can only nominate 2 metrics in the control plane, I will nominate, I'll show you next slide. The one I want to look for is the API server. The reason is because if the API server is down, everything is down. Simple as that. So I pay a lot of attention to the API server in the Kubernetes. Another one is etcd. Most engineers don't pay attention to ECD, but I'll tell you, if etcd is done, your configuration is gone. Simple as that. I pay attention to API server and etcd. Remember, just because this is Kubernetes, just because this is cloud native, you cannot forget your fundamentals. Make sure that you back up your etcd. Okay? Where do you find them? You find them here. That's where you find them. The API server, you see on the left-hand side, you do a kubectl get raw ready verbose. That's where you get if the API server is ready. Because if your API server Kubernetes is not ready, you cannot run Kubernetes. So that's why your API server must make sure you got that metric up and running. The second part is etcd health. That's the kube ADM. That's how you get it right there. And that's how you describe. And you want to see the errors that I actually see on the right-hand side. Okay? 2 metrics that I actually suggest on the Kubernetes compute layer. Lastly, just to wrap it up, no more time already, just to wrap it up. My fellow engineers, Kubernetes is cool, but you don't run Kubernetes because for fun. Kubernetes, you run Kubernetes because there's an application in Kubernetes, correct? If there's no application, you don't need to run Kubernetes. Kubernetes was designed to make application scaling really, really well. So in the ideal world, there's this talk about pet versus cattle. Pets, macam kucing. Oh, the app, very precious, macam kucing, very precious. You give food, you give everything very good. Cattle or cow, lembu, not so much. Like 100, 200, 300. So especially for Kubernetes, Kubernetes is very good for cattle or server cattle architecture. And if you don't know what application metric to start, I suggest start with golden signals as actually described by Google SRE handbook. So what is out of 4? What's my pick? What's my pick, huh? My pick. 95 latency percentile. Here's an example how you do in a global client library where you use Prometheus. You do 95 percentile. Why 95 percentile? You want to make sure that you see the most extreme use case, most extreme. That's where 95 percentile right there. Another one is error rate. That what you can see the error rate of the application right there. Okay? So just a recap. I'm running out of time very soon. Just a recap. Top 10. First, misconfiguration. I always want to look at the pipeline status. Is it good? No good? How many good? How many bad? That's the first one I see. Second one, CPU resource. Especially for Kubernetes, horizontal, vertical HPA, you look for CPU and memory. Where to get them? Metric server. Remember, metric server. Number three, network is always a problem. Every engineer always have a network problem. 3 metric that I suggest. DNS error, health, and error rate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6, huh? Number 4, your pod is always going to stop. What are you going to do? Status phase and reason why the pod gets stuck. Then once it's stuck, you go into logs right there. Okay? Number 8 and number 10, your API server readiness metric and your health metric right there. Control plane. Okay, you have misconfiguration, compute resource, network, pod stuck, control plane. And lastly, 2 more, 12, huh? Not 10. I give you 2 more bonus. Application, P95, bukan average, huh? Everyone like to use average. P95 and error rate, okay? Just as a recap, today I give you top 10 metric, but there's one problem with metric. Metric doesn't give you details, correct? 60%, 70%, 50%, 10%. To go details, you need tracing and logs. This is not the topic for it. But if you want to talk about tracing and logs, you can come visit us and talk a bit more. Metric is what I call early signals, symptoms. Macam tak betul, huh? that one, the API layer not control, then you go tracing and logs. So metrics is the first place that you start right there. Now, my fellow engineers, your Kubernetes will fail. It's okay to fail because Kubernetes was designed to handle failure. So things like auto-scaling, horizontal, vertical, actually do very well. The good news is the community is getting better, but also sometimes doing managed Kubernetes might not be perfect. You still need to understand the 101. Where's the best place to understand Kubernetes? I'm going to introduce you my Kubernetes god, Kelsey Hightower. Oh, this one, I pray to him every day. You should learn Kubernetes the hard way, because once you learn the hard way, you know how Kubernetes works. It makes your life managing Kubernetes much better. So I highly recommend my Kubernetes god, Kelsey Hightower. Also, I just want to recap. The community is actually doing a really good job. Like today, we're here, actually coming out with Kubernetes troubleshooting guide, and there's a very nice flow that you see, and you can see right there. This is start, you do here, 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 all the way to help life easier for Kubernetes ops engineers, DevOps, and SRE, in to make sure the Kubernetes is actually running okay. So this is what you do, and that's the guide, and I give you a link, so you actually go there right there. Lastly, what we do here in New Relic, you can have a chat with us today. I'm not going to talk so much about New Relic, but we are a pure cloud as a service. We provide monitoring and observability as a service. If you're a New Relic customer, terima kasih. Thank you so much for supporting us. If you haven't used New Relic, maybe consider us. You can come to have a chat with us and we'll talk. Okay? But if you want to do Kubernetes cluster, if you just want to push Prometheus and use all the good tools that you want, like Prometheus and Grafana, we support them natively. We support them to make your life easy so that you can focus as engineer. Just a recap, last one. If you want to try out New Relic, that's a scan. You actually go on the left-hand side. We actually have a very special sign-up page that you can sign up with the Kubernetes Community Jakarta edition. If you want more guides on New Relic and but also just Kubernetes in general, you can go to my landing page, Kubernetes right there. But also, a lot of engineers always come to me, hey, bro, Kubernetes is cool, but the most important, Golang. I don't care about Kubernetes, Golang. I got you, Golang. Okay, so Golang is there, but also, especially for head of engineering, CTO, tech lead, if you want reports on what we research, like what we see with our customers are doing, report also allowed you right there, okay? So today, this is top 10 metric. Tomorrow, we have hands-on workshop, and today, later, pukul 12 jam, if you come to our pods, I'll talk about open telemetry. Apa tu ya? Open telemetry. Open telemetry is the second most popular technology in CNCF. The question I'm going to talk about is how to use open telemetry with Kubernetes. That's 12 o'clock. If you want to chat, we can talk a bit more. Okay? With that, my time is up. Thank you so much. My name is Steve. I'm a developer relations lead from New Relic. Thank you so much. Terima kasih.